And it is time for Highway to Health because it's 7 a.m. o'clock in the Central Time Zone, and we are on a Tuesday here this morning. And it's good to welcome back Dr. Melissa Wikoff to the program. She heads up Peachtree Hearing. Go to peachtreehearing.com or go to radionemo.com and just scroll down a touch to today's program, and you'll see the link there. And Dr. Wikoff, it's good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Good morning, and thank you for having me back this morning.
Well, I want to ask you the most obvious question here, and I failed to ask you during the news break because we got kind of tied up in audiology. But how did you do in the storm?
Oh, we are perfectly safe. Thank you. That's so kind of you to ask. Everyone is fine. Our family is fine. Our staff is fine. We closed the office, precautionary, and the kids were home from school, but I would rather keep everybody home and have everyone safe. But thank you so much for asking.
That is great.
And were you all right in the storm? Where are you located?
Well, I'm in New Orleans, and we went through Francine, but it wasn't that big of an event. We did lose a tree and an arbor and stuff like that, but nothing compared to what they are now starting to call the worst storm in U.S. history. Helene, not so much the landfall, but the aftermath. It is just unbelievable. And it seems like things are centering into the western part of North Carolina now in terms of how bad can it get. It can go off the scale, and then it's so far off the scale you can't find the scale anymore. So it's horrific, and will continue to be. So we have that.
We're watching out for our friends out there.
Yeah. So hearing, we're on radio. So how important is that to us, right? I had a couple of years ago, I had a guy who was deaf on a telephone interview, and he spoke through an interpreter. He was sign language into his interpreter, and I was we were doing back and forth. And I thought that was fascinating in terms of, communication. And hearing is such sight and hearing, that's our two forms. Well, I guess speech is the other form, but you can pretty much see and hear without speaking and be aware. So when you lose one of those things, you basically kind of lose your balance in a sense. And I don't mean that in terms of being dizzy balance, but you're isolated from society, really, in a sense. And there's a lot of depression, a lot of bad times when you can't hear, you can't relate. Even if you're really hard of hearing, that has a deep effect. So that is something that we all want to avoid, and a lot of us kind of ignore our hearing in terms of, well, I'm getting a little bit older and I'm a little hard of hearing, and that's okay. Do you hear that a lot in your practice?
Every single day. I think I have the greatest job in the world, and no one ever wants to come visit me because we're all in denial. We're all avoiding it. But truly, it's not age-related, and it's not anything to be ashamed of or afraid of. The sooner you do something about it, the better quality of life you're going to have for the rest of your life. So it's so important to just get a test and know,
This conversation, I've started down a road that I really didn't intend to go down, but I'm going to continue on if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. If you are blind, if you're born blind, if you go blind, lose your sight, and if you're sightless, you don't. You just say, hey, I'm blind, okay, and you don't really deny it so much. What is there a psychological, and maybe this is something you guys talk about in your field, and maybe something that you learned at Washington University in St. Louis. Is there some psychological reason why folks deny hearing loss where they wouldn't deny sight loss? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And it's funny because you're right. I wear glasses, I wear my contacts, and I don't think twice about it, right? There is a stigma associated with hearing loss often, at least in my field or in my practice, is on average, men over women, but both genders will wait on average 7 to 8 years. They will struggle with a hearing loss before they even come in for an exam and even admit to it because of this stigma that it's age related or you're aging or there's something wrong with you. And I think that in younger generations, we're seeing people take hold of their health. I know this is a Highway to Health show, and we're taking hold of our bodies and taking charge of ourselves instead of just letting things go because we're afraid to talk about it or admit that there's something different. But with hearing, it can usually be helped, right? So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's often wearing amplification or a hearing aid, but they're so invisible and so tiny these days. It's much less obvious that you're wearing a hearing aid and you're hearing well and you're not missing what's being said to you than someone actually noticing that you're wearing a hearing aid. We're also worried about ourselves, that no one's really looking at you trying to figure out what's off or what's different.
Yeah, I get that. So I also get the fact that men are reticent to go into because I'm a man, so I hear you.
It's often a spouse that will drag their partner in, and I think my job sometimes is half marriage counselor, but I love it. And it's just funny that people will come in, they're married for 60 years. They'll tell me that, after one of them got hearing aids, I saved their marriage. And it's just funny because they've been married for so long. But it often is the people that we're closest to and the most comfortable with that we just forget about. And it just becomes less important to hear because they love us no matter what. And that's often frustrating our partners the most.
I can't imagine anywhere that I am, and boy, in a truck. Now, when I got into trucking radio back in 1972, before you were born, it was a noisy environment, still is, but it was a really noisy environment. You had the wind noise, you had the whine of the tires, and you could hear all of that. Then you had the engine. Then you had the AM radio, hopefully with the old road gang on, blaring away. Then you had the CB blaring away. And maybe a dog barking in the back too. So truck drivers have, and then when you get to where you're going to load or unload, that's a pretty noisy operation as well. So there's little relief from noise in the trucking world, and we talked about that
Absolutely.
Before. Is there a way? Is there some value or necessity for actually being able to shut out sound altogether, like maybe getting a good pair of sound canceling headphones, something like that? In other words, it is part of good therapy and good hearing hygiene. Let's put it that way. I never thought I'd put those two words together, hearing hygiene, but maybe there is a hearing hygiene.
Yeah, there is actually. Yes.
Okay.
We see so many truck drivers in my practice. And often before someone gets hired to become a driver, they will have to have a hearing exam and keep that on file. And I really applaud all of those companies that are taking good care of their employees' health and their drivers' health and their hearing hygiene or hearing health. And they will have them monitored either every 6 months or every year to make sure, because so many drivers and truckers and people out on the road have what we call this noise notch, this classic noise-induced hearing loss that we will see on their graph of hearing or their audiogram. So that's something that we're always monitoring. And while we don't want to shut all sound out, because you need to hear sound on the road if someone's honking their horn or there's a pedestrian or someone's loading something behind you, you still need to be aware of what's going on around you. And you probably want to enjoy the radio, maybe the Road Dog Trucking Show when you're out driving. So we don't want to shut everything off. But we fit a lot of people with what we call filtered earplugs, or they're musicians' earplugs is another name for them. And they have
I use those
filter.
Myself.
Exactly. So we can allow sound safely to pass through, but we're going to block out harmful noise. And you can get those over the counter for as little as, $20, $30. And we have those right in the office. You can get those online, or we can custom make you a pair. There are a lot of manufacturers that make them, but there's one company called Sensophonics that makes great filtered custom earplugs that are just made for your ears. You're getting them in there securely. You just pop them in and you can go on your drive comfortably and know that you're protecting yourself. It's a great question.
I asked you a question and you kind of answered another question. What I meant by, going into a soundless environment, it would be like when you would be on break and you wanted to go to sleep.
Oh, great question. Yeah.
Okay, but I appreciate the answer that you gave because that's an important aspect as well. But in other words, it seems to me what you are saying is that, okay, you have the noise, it's kind of the regular thing, and everybody suffers through the whole thing. Does a constant noisy environment, even if it's just a little, background noise and it's nothing really disruptive, does that kind of wear down your ability to hear? Does it wear down the eardrum or the bone? In other words, is it a cumulative effect?
It can be. So certain levels of noise, and there's actually a graph you can find online I believe it's on the OSHA website, that will tell you how loud sound you can have, even just in the background, and for how long. So the louder the sound is, the shorter amounts of time you should be around that noise before giving yourself a quiet break. Because when you listen to certain levels of sound that are so loud for so long, they will wear down. Think of it like we're exercising a muscle every day, right? Your ear wants that stimulation. But if you exercise it too hard, your organ of hearing, it's this little snail shell called the cochlea, and it's wound up like a spiral. And if you unraveled it, kind of like the piano in the movie Big, it's arranged what we call tonotopically, or by tone, like a piano key, from low to high pitches. And the lowest pitches are inside that snail shell and they're protected. But these little, they're called stereocilia, or hair cells. They're little hairs, and they are related to higher pitches on the outside. And so noise can damage those first. So you will start to lose higher pitch sounds. Those little cells, if you exercise them too hard, they will become damaged, or they will break and die off, and they don't regenerate. So you will start to notice high frequency sounds are speech sounds, consonants. So those are the sounds that give speech its meaning. So what you're going to start to notice is that speech becomes less and less clear. You can hear, but you can't really understand. We lose that speech understanding. Or background noise is a low pitch. So you go to a noisy restaurant and all that noise swallows up the conversation, and it's no longer enjoyable to go out with friends to dinner.
On that note, we're going to go out, not for dinner, but for a quick break. And I'm going to ask you about what should you put in your ear. There's an old adage about don't put anything smaller than your elbow in your ear. And we'll talk about ear self-care if we can come back with that. Dr. Melissa Wikoff is with us from Peachtree Hearing, and the website is peachtreehearing.com. It's National Audiology Month, and that link is up on our Facebook page. Tara dropped that here this morning. And a lot of great information there.
Hello, I'm Debbie Boffa, CEO of Travel Centres of America. A TA citizen driver brings respect and honour to the trucking industry by living the values of safety, community involvement, leadership and health and wellness. From now through October 7th, we're accepting nominations at citizendriveraward.com. If you know someone who exemplifies excellence on the roads we drive, nominate them by October 7th for the chance to celebrate their commitment to the industry. And remember, you can even nominate yourself. Visit citizendriveraward.com.
You can join in the mission to remember our fallen heroes, honor those who currently serve and their families, and teach younger generations about the value of freedom. A $17 donation to Wreaths Across America sponsors a fresh balsam remembrance wreath. These wreaths have become a symbol of America's respect for those who have served and no longer walk with us. Sponsor a wreath today. Visit wreathsacrossamerica.org or call 877-385-9504.
Your Weekend 34 is interviewing two batteries for truckers who are weekend warriors. Odyssey Battery and Some Other Battery. You all right there? Some Other Battery?
I've been in storage for months. I'm kind of run down. Could we do this later?
Weekend will be over later.
Tell us about it, Odyssey.
I've been in the garage just as long, all winter in fact, but I'm ready to start. Ready to start anything. Motorcycles, ATVs, personal watercrafts, boats, even RVs.
Impressive.
You're charged because I'm charged.
Any advice to finish?
I'm finished.
Finished? Told you. I'm just getting started. Strong starting power and long shelf life. Check me out at odysseybattery.com.
Odyssey Battery, your weekend is just getting started.
Hot damn, I'm a gambling man, so everybody get your bets down, cause this old truck's gonna make us a buck. She's running the Boulevard Shakedown. Hot damn, I'm a trucking man, and I sorta like to put my foot down. This old rig gonna blow your wig. Got go-go girls in a
Dr. Melissa Wikoff is with us this morning, and we're glad to have her back on the show from PeachtreeHearing.com. This is a National Audiology Month, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And there's a great website that we have posted up. Tara posted it up this morning on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Dave Nemo Show. But let's talk about self-care because, again, drivers are kind of on their own out there a lot of times. I know we talked now because we're on satellite radio. We talk to everybody, not just long-haul drivers, but the long-haul drivers are, between here and there most of the time. And a lot of times you're kind of forced to go to the truck stop or a drugstore and kind of self-treat hearing things. And there are so many little bottles that you can drop into your ear. What's good, what's bad? And can you give us a quick rundown on what should you put in your ear and what should you
You
not?
got it. So you and I were saying before, you really shouldn't put anything that old adage smaller than your elbow in your ear. One of my specialties. So one of my specialties is earwax removal, and we have people who come to my office from all over the country to have things removed out of the ears, and you would not believe some of the things that we take out. You can actually, if you're interested, we have a crazy viral YouTube and a TikTok where if our patients are up for it, we'll record it and you can see what comes out. But the crazy things that come out are from the patients that try and do it at home. So my best advice for you, it's really not expensive, is to let a professional look in your ear and remove whatever's in there. You can get stuff over the counter. There's actually the only drops that I recommend in my office, it's something called Earwax MD, where it helps dissolve it versus just soften it. There are a lot of drops and softeners out there that will actually just make it worse and add buildup into your ear. So I would just say, leave your ear alone, let the professional get it out. We can do it quickly, painlessly, but I've taken Q-tip heads out of ears. That's probably the most common thing. You can get these cameras and look in your own ear on Amazon, but I'm telling you, that's my greatest referral source because people are putting these things in their ears and they're just pushing it deeper. And now you're in pain. And, especially if you're just stuck driving a long haul and you're on the road, we don't want you in any pain. So take the time. It's a 15-minute appointment. I would go see a professional, honestly. I took a Lego piece out of my husband's ear one day. We've got a video of that, but crazy thing.
How did he wind up getting a Lego piece in his ear?
You're right. I think it was Captain America or Iron Man, one of his little arms. But when my son was 2 or 3, my husband was napping while they were playing, and he just somehow dropped it on in there, right? So you never know what you're going to get out of an ear, even from your own family.
Oh, my goodness gracious alive. Okay, let me ask you this then. do you necessarily, okay, earwax, we all have it. It's it's like cholesterol. We make it ourselves. We have to have it. Too much of it is a bad thing. So in terms of earwax itself, do you need to have some hearing problems or some pain to get earwax removed? Do you want to remove it all? If you do remove it all, will it kind of, come back to the degree that it should? Am I overcomplicating things here?
So this is actually a wonderful question. I think it's a great question. And do you need it? Not really anymore, right? When through evolution, I think, hundreds of thousands of years ago, we would have wax in our ears to protect us from, giant bugs and things crawling in our ears. It would stick and trap them. But it's antibacterial. It's healthy. It's good to have. But if there's too much of it, you won't be able to hear, and it can become quite painful. We see a lot of people who go swimming or water skiing, and they get pushed down into the water, and that wax gets pushed deep in their ear, and then they're in pain. So when you come to me, I remove it all. You'll produce more. When we are feeling anxious, when we're tired, sometimes if the food we're eating is too oily, the weather, hair product, skin product, the soap you use, all of those things are factors into what can make you produce more earwax. And it certainly can't hurt you, but if it blocks up and then prevents you from hearing, we got to get it out of there.
Wow. So, everything you say makes me come up with another half dozen questions, but I want to circle back real quick to swimmer's ear because you hear that all the time. Is that what's happening then? In fact, you go underwater and the pressure of the water is actually pushing earwax deeper and deeper in, or if you have a Lego in there, it's going to push it in. Is that
yep.
the crux of swimmer's ear?
That's not swimmer's ear. So swimmer's ear is actually an infection. And I'll let an ear, nose, and throat physician tell you more about swimmer's ear because that's really not my wheelhouse. But what we see is the force of the water pushing that wax deeper in the ear. We want the wax to come out versus go in deeper. So when you are swimming, I'll often see people who have been maybe they're returning from vacation and they were just in the ocean too deep, or they were scuba diving, and it's just wax, and it's the best part about my job, because what else can I do where someone comes in and says they can't hear, I'm in pain, and 30 seconds later I can fix it. It's so satisfying, and really my favorite thing to do.
That is awesome. I got to tell you, we are out of time, and we didn't even talk about tinnitus. We didn't even talk about Meniere's disease and vertigo, and how your brain has to work harder if you can't hear, and it can cause fatigue. So yes, you're coming back on the show, okay?
Next time, I would love to. Thank you again for bringing attention to audiology and celebrating audiology awareness, and really highlighting the highway to health. Thank you again for having me. I so appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to get you scheduled in here to really dig deeper into some of these top of the line ailments, if you will, that cause problems and real serious problems. Dr. Melissa Wikoff.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. PeachtreeHearing.com. Go to Facebook page /Dave Nemo Show, and the Audiology Awareness Month website is there as well.